Hey, Daniel here from Smart Home Perfected. While a lot of robot vacuums on the market today have some sort of mopping function, it's usually quite basic and rudimentary. It requires frequent changing of water, it's usually a very thin mopping pad, and usually you'd use it once or twice and then forget about it. Today we're reviewing the Narwal T10, and these guys really specialize on the mopping side with two very thick pads. It also has a robot vacuuming function as well, so we'll test out both of these functions. The key to this is it comes with a base station or a docking station that has a large tank of clean water and a large tank of dirty water, so you don't need to change the water that often. So this could become a regular feature on the cleaning circuit in our home. Let's get started. Links to the product are in the description below. Before we begin, I'd like to point out that Narwal provided a sample of this robot vacuum mop to us free of charge for the purposes of this review. That being said, it doesn't impact the honesty of the review itself. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up below, subscribe to our channel for more smart home content, or leave a comment below. So as you can see, the base station of this Narwal T10 is significantly bigger than a typical robot vacuum base station. The reason for that is it has two containers for clean water and dirty water. It's worth considering that though, because this will be quite sizable in your room. The T10 has two triangular mop pads at the base which rotate 3 times a second. Periodically the robot will return to the base station to clean its mop pads. This means that it's not just using dirty mop pads all across the room. Once cleaned, it returns to where it was on its navigation. At the end of the cleaning cycle, the mop pads auto dry, which is a useful feature. In terms of the water tank capacity, the robot can clean up to 3,000 square foot. When it comes to the vacuuming function, the Narwal T10 has 2 side brushes, which are constantly sweeping dust and debris underneath the vacuum where the suction takes hold. The vacuum doesn't have a roller brush, which means it struggles on carpets. Despite that, there is a strong 1800 PA suction power, which works quite well on hard floors. When it comes to mapping, there's a LIDA sensor at the top of the robot, which is constantly spinning and mapping out the territory. There's an iOS and Android app where you can view the map once created. You can set virtual no-go zones, create cleaning schedules, adjust vacuuming suction levels, mopping moisture levels, etc. You can't operate both vacuuming and mopping functions simultaneously. As you see, there are different modules for vacuuming, which has the dual brushes, and then as well as the triangular mop pads. So this is a bit of an issue because it would be ideal to be able to vacuum and mop at the same time. In terms of the water tanks, you have 2 5-litre or 1.3 gallon water tanks for clean and dirty water. How often you'll need to flush and refill those tanks really depends on the size of your home. Unlike other robot vacuum and mop hybrids, the Narwal T10 comes with detergent sheets, so you can actually put those into the water tanks and get some detergent in as part of the cleaning run. Okay, so now onto the app setup. So it's a case of using the QR code or going to the App Store to download the Narwal app. You select your country, you sign up for an account and confirm your email address. Enter some personal information and then you're good to go. Next up, it's a case of adding the robot, so you need to put in your Wi-Fi network.
The robot is starting up. Please use when the white indicator light keeps on.
Important to note that the robot needs to be right beside your home router, otherwise it won't be able to find it.
Prepared for connection. Please follow the instructions on app.
Also, it does not support 5G, so you need to use 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi. Then it's a case of pressing both buttons on the robot for 2 seconds, and then follow the voice prompts.
Network connected.
We had some issues initially with this because we were too far away from the router, so I can't stress enough that you need to be right beside it. The reason for this is it sets up its own temporary Wi-Fi network that can only work in close proximity to the router. A small criticism I would have with this is that there's a 2-minute timeout, so we did time out a couple of times until we eventually got it. Once connected, you can name the robot, and away you go, onto mapping.
Please put the robot back to the base station and start mapping.
So a review of the mopping function. With the 2 thick pads at the base rotating 3 times a second, you're clearly getting a much better interaction with the floor compared to kind of standard robot vacuum mop hybrids where it's just a flat pad without any movement or any downward pressure. So you can see it is doing a much better job than what you would expect from the more typical hybrids. With the detergent included, you're actually getting a cleaning action as well, as opposed to simply wetting the floor. It's a pretty decent performance from the navigation. You can see the LIDA radar spinning. The bump sensor at the front is quite good in terms of navigating the tighter spaces in and around tables and chairs. The navigation isn't perfect though. I have used other robots with LiDAR navigation that seem to have a higher level of coverage based off the navigation algorithm. Overall though, the Narwal T10 is primarily a robot mop and it definitely does the job. Onto the vacuuming function. I think this is what really lets down the Narwal T10. I think the lack of a brush roll is a big issue. I know they say that it's better for not getting hair tangled in the brush roll. That being said, I think this robot would be in a different league if it could vacuum and mop at the same time, and if it had a brush roll as well, it would really perform well on carpets. The two spinning brushes within the vacuum as well, I think cause more problems than a single spinning brush. It tends to spray debris around the floor as opposed to a single brush which sends it directly into the suction. Having to swap hardware between the brushes and the mop pads is a bit of a hassle as well. I think in reality I will not use this as a robot vacuum, I'll use it as a mop, and then I have just a dedicated unit for a robot vacuum. Again, I think they missed a trick there. It would have been great to combine both functions at the same time, and then you just need a single device that doesn't require switching out and switching in of hardware. Another issue on the vacuuming side is it's a relatively small dust compartment, but the base station, despite the fact that it's quite large, doesn't actually have a container for dust. So if you were using this as a regular vacuum, you would need to constantly empty out that dust compartment. Whereas other robot vacuums with base stations actually have a vacuum bag embedded and it only needs changing once every couple of months. Onto the pad cleaning. Every now and again the robot will return to the base station to wash out the mop pads, which I think in general is a great idea. You don't want to be tracking dirty mop pads all around the room and actually making a worse job of it. So it does regularly come back and then it continues on its journey, picking up where it left off. Generally speaking, very good idea. It doesn't really fully clean out the mop pads, so they will need a bit of a manual clean every now and then, so that's just something to consider. As you can see with the water tanks, you can see the clean water reducing and the dirty water filling up, so it's definitely doing a job there. Worth noting that this robot mop isn't going to do a deep clean of your floors. So in our kitchen, for example, we have tiles that unfortunately are quite dirty. You know, this isn't a deep clean robot that needs elbow grease to get out. But with this robot wandering around every day or every second day, it should be able to maintain a level of cleanliness. Yeah, no point expecting deep cleans because that's not really what it does. So a quick test that we ran, we just spilled some orange juice on the ground and then set the Narwal T10 off to clean it up. A couple of problems that came up with this. Number one, on the app that we have, there was no remote control, so in the sense that we couldn't actually point it at the spillage to clean it up. The second thing is there's no zonal control, so we couldn't just drag a rectangle around the area to clean. We could only set it to clean the entire room. So even just to test this, it needed to clean the entire kitchen, and it took 20 minutes. So that was an issue. As you can see, there's no spillage detection kind of sensor. It's just cleaning on a pattern, and it just hits whatever it hits. So as you can see with the spillage, it tracks through kind of one part of it and then works away somewhere else, and it comes back and gets another part of it. So it's not ideal. I think it would have been nicer to be able to have a zonal clean just of that rectangular area, and then have it operate twice or three times to really clean that up. So yeah, not bad, but definitely some improvement. I think more so even on the app side than the hardware side. So onto the mapping. The first thing you'll do when you set up the Narwal T10 is install the vacuuming spinners or the vacuuming sweepers, and then you'll allow it to roam your house, and via the LIDAR navigation it'll map out the various rooms. So based off the layout of our home, we had some serious issues with this process. We have lots of doors in the downstairs of our home, so it's possible to do an entire loop between the sitting room, the hallway, the kitchen and the living room. The Narwal T10 wasn't able to handle this layout. So as you'll see in the first video here, it roams the various rooms, it maps it out in quite high fidelity detail, which I was quite happy with, but then when it returned to the base station, it stripped away a lot of that high fidelity detail and essentially merged all of the various rooms into one single room, which is clearly not going to work. So from speaking to Narwal support, they explained to me that I need to break the continuous loop between the 4 rooms. That way the robot can actually see and separate out and build up the map off the back of that. This was very far from ideal, and I've used other robots with LIDA navigation that have not had this problem. Eventually, after 5 or 6 mappings, we got it to work by closing one of the doors. So you can see now, by closing the door between the hallway and the living room, it was possible to then complete the mapping and then name the various rooms, merge rooms. It saw the hallway as 3 separate areas, so I was able to merge that into a single area. It saw the living room and sitting room as one room, so I split those into 2. So once I closed that door, I was able to properly manage the map. So I was able to close off a couple of rooms that are down steps. I was able to have a no-go zone for underneath the couch because the couch is just too low. I also set a no-go zone for mopping on a large mat or a large rug that we have in the living room. Worth noting also that the mapping is quite fast, so the robot essentially runs around the various rooms. It's not looking to do a comprehensive clean of each room. So previous vacuums that I've worked with would essentially undergo a full cleaning cycle of the various rooms, which could take up to half an hour. Whereas the Narwal T10 was essentially roaming around and just sort of figuring out the layout. It took 5-10 minutes, so that's a good idea. It just some issues with that continuous cycle that I talked about. So on to the verdicts. Generally speaking, I think it's a good robot mop. It is expensive. I think that's probably a big issue I would have with it. Up to $1,000. Do you get the bang for the buck? I'm not sure. On the vacuuming side, definitely not. On the mopping side, I think you do, but there are issues such as issues on the mapping, the initial mapping side. Navigation is not 100%. It does miss parts. I think the app is missing some key features, the likes of the zonal cleaning, remote control. It definitely does a good job, I suppose, in terms of actually, working away day in, day out and mopping out the rooms. It doesn't tackle carpets that well. You have to set, the triangular no-go zone on the app, but even that doesn't work perfectly every time. They provide a magnetic strip that you can map around your carpets or your rugs. But again, the magnetic strip's too short for any decent sized rug. And again, it shouldn't need it. If the no-go zone of the app works perfectly, then there's no need for that magnetic strip. Yeah, a lot good with this. A lot of areas for improvement. I think we'll keep going with it and see where it's at in a few months' time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up below. Drop a comment if you've used this robot mop, if you've used other robot mops or hybrids. Let us know your thoughts. If you like the content, subscribe below to get more robot vacuum, robot mop, kind of smart home content. Thanks for watching.